Republicans, including Florida Senator Marco Rubio, have strongly criticized President Biden's response to the balloon, the first of 4 flying objects shot down this month. 4. Senator Rubio is a top-ranking Republican on the Senate Intelligence Committee and a member of the Foreign Relations Committee, and we're happy to say he's joining us this morning. Senator, it's good to see you.
Good to see you.
I know you've had several briefings about this matter in the last couple of days. What can you share with us about what you've learned, and how concerned should the American people be? First, share with us what you've learned.
Yeah, I think it's important to separate 2 different and distinct incidents, or 2 different types of incident. The first is the balloon. Everybody saw it. We knew what it was. We've seen them before. The U.S. knew it was coming and knew it was headed here. It knew at least the day before it entered U.S. airspace what it was going to be doing, and had the opportunity to shoot it down. Did not. It entered the U.S. through Idaho, traveled through the middle of the country, over some very sensitive and important military installations, some of the most important we have in the country, exited off the coast of South Carolina. It was shot down, and they're recovering. That was a spy balloon. And we've never seen it do what that one did, but we have seen it as they've been testing it around the world and so forth. Then you have the other 3. The other 3, we don't know what they are. They don't know what they are. They haven't told anybody. They haven't told us what it is. They may not know themselves and potentially may never know. Those incidents, the 3 objects, as they've called it, are actually not unprecedented. There have been hundreds and hundreds of reports almost identical to these over the last few years. It's not about flying saucers. It's about small vehicles operating in often restricted airspace. But what is unusual is that this is the first time in American history, 65 years since NORAD was set up, that we've shot anything down, not to mention 3 things over 3 days last weekend. And so I do think that merits the president directly addressing why those 3 things were shot down and what we know up to this point. Nothing they've talked to us about with regards to those 3 should be classified, because it's really not the type of thing you classify.
Senator, based on what you know, is the United States prepared to deal with what it can now see are objects in the sky on a fairly routine basis?
I would say the answer is no. If you go back, I encourage everyone, I know people don't follow this closely, but there's an agency called AARO that was created by Senator Gillibrand of New York and myself and others, and it monitors all of these anomalous incidents, which is basically aircraft flying in places they don't belong and we don't know who it belongs to. There are hundreds of these cases being reported. We don't do a good job of monitoring. We don't have a systemized way to respond to it. And the difference between these 3 and hundreds of those cases is these 3 were shot down. That's the biggest difference. So right now, if you're a small craft moving slowly, perhaps maneuvering in ways we're not used to seeing, at 20, 25, 30,000 feet, the U.S. really doesn't have an established protocol for how to monitor that or address it until NORAD decided to turn on its radars and look for it at that level.
The Biden administration is still being criticized for not shooting down the balloon earlier. And their pushback to that is, listen, we wanted to make sure that it was in a safe area, that American lives weren't at stake. Do you not believe that explanation?
No, they had an opportunity to shoot it down before it entered U.S. airspace, before it even got over Alaska. They knew where it was headed. They had been tracking it. We knew well in advance, at least a day before it entered U.S. airspace. We knew where it was headed, and we had an opportunity to confront it then, and failed to do so. And now this thing, what it did is it went right through the middle of the country. And unlike other similar flights by these balloons, it didn't just go over a piece of Florida for 30 minutes on its way across the equator. This one hung over, diagonally across through the middle of the country, and over places like Strategic Command, sensitive missile fields. My sense is they probably collected all sorts of signals, intelligence, and imagery that have proved valuable to the Chinese Communist Party. And so they had a chance to stop it before it did all that.
Well, how is this affecting U.S.-Chinese relations then?
And on that point, though, Gail, there seems to be daylight between what the White House is saying, that there's been no effect, and then what the Pentagon has said, which is that Chinese counterparts would not even take a call from our defense secretary. Sounds like a pretty cool relationship. So where are things really, and where do they need to go going forward?
Well, the United States and China are engaged in great power competition. That's been the way the world has been for all but the last, 30 years, but which is an anomaly. But the world has always had great powers that compete against each other, and the hope is you can avoid that turning into a military conflict. But we will be competitors with China technologically, commercially, geopolitically, and military from a capability perspective for the rest of our lifetimes. This entire century will be defined by that competition. So, yeah, the Chinese are complaining and stuff, but they know it's their balloon.